You're 11 in Kowloon. Your mother sells you to a restaurant for 200 Hong Kong dollars. That's 26 US dollars. The price of 2.5 asthma inhalers. The price of your brother breathing for 2 weeks. 23 years later, you'll control a methamphetamine empire across 4 countries. You'll be dragonhead of the 14K Triad, the youngest in 600 years of history. And then the man you trained, the man you called little brother, will put a gun to your head. You're 11 years old in Kowloon Walled City, 1989, which is the year before they tear it down and the year that determines everything that comes after. The walled city is 33,000 people crammed into 2.6 hectares, which is barely 6.5 acres, which means the population density is higher than anywhere else on Earth. The buildings are stacked so close together that sunlight never reaches the alleys, and the alleys are so narrow you can touch both walls at once, and the air smells like cooking oil and sewage and something else you can't name but will later learn is desperation concentrated into breathable form. Your mother works in a garment factory, 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, for 800 Hong Kong dollars monthly. That's 103 US dollars, which sounds like nothing because it is nothing, especially when you're trying to feed 3 people on it. Your apartment is 15 square meters, which is about 160 square feet, which is smaller than most people's living rooms. 1 room. You sleep under the table because there's nowhere else. Your younger brother, who's 8, sleeps on the floor next to you. He has chronic asthma, which means he needs medicine, which costs $60 per inhaler, which lasts 2 weeks if he's careful, which he can't be because asthma doesn't care about budgets. Your father disappeared 3 years ago. Not disappeared like he went to the store and never came back. Disappeared like he owed $40,000 to the wrong people and the wrong people collected in the way they always collect when you can't pay. You don't know if he's dead or if he's in the harbor with concrete shoes or if he's in mainland China working off the debt, and your mother won't talk about it, which tells you everything you need to know about which option is most likely. On a Tuesday morning in August, your mother comes home with a man. She calls him Uncle Chung, which in Cantonese doesn't necessarily mean he's related to you, it's just what you call older men who are doing you a favor or who you owe something to or who are about to change your life in ways you don't understand yet. Uncle Chung is maybe 45, clean shirt, pressed slacks, gold Rolex that catches the light even in the darkness of the walled city. He owns a tea house in Sim Sha Sui, or that's what he tells you, and maybe it's even true. He looks at you the way someone looks at a used car. Checks your teeth. Asks if you can read. You can read Cantonese, enough to get by, which is more than a lot of kids in the walled city can say because school costs money and money is oxygen and there's never enough. He nods, satisfied, puts 200 Hong Kong dollars on the table. Your mother takes it. She won't look at you. She's crying, which you've seen before but never like this, never with this specific sound that's half sob and half apology. Uncle Chung will give you work, she says, and her voice is doing this thing where it's trying to sound normal but failing completely. Good job. You'll eat every day. You'll have a place to sleep. She says this like it's an opportunity, like she's doing you a favor, and maybe in her mind she is, because the alternative is watching both her sons starve while she can only afford to feed one. You understand what's happening. You're being sold. 26 US dollars. The price of 2.5 inhalers. The price of your brother breathing for 2 weeks. The mathematics is so simple it's almost beautiful. Your mother can't feed 3 people on $800 a month. 1 less mouth means your brother survives. And if you hate her for it, if you carry that hate like a stone in your chest for the next 23 years, well, that's just the cost of doing business, and the business is staying alive. Uncle Chung takes you to the tea house. Except it's not a tea house, not really. The ground floor is a tea house. The basement is 12 mahjong tables where men sit smoking cigarettes and betting money and drinking Hennessy like it's water. This is a gambling den, and your job is to serve tea, clear ashtrays, run errands, and keep your mouth shut about everything you see, which is a lot, because people who gamble don't notice children, and children who are smart learn to be invisible. You work 18 hours a day. You sleep on a cot in the kitchen that's too short for you even at 11. You don't get paid a salary. You get food and shelter, which Uncle Chung reminds you is generous, and he says he'll send $100 monthly to your mother, and you never know if he actually does, And you never ask because asking questions is how you end up back in the walled city with nothing. The men who come to the basement all have tattoos. Dragons wrapped around forearms. Tigers clawing across backs. Chinese characters you can't read yet running down ribs like promises written in ink and pain. They speak in code, numbers instead of names. The dealer is 426. The boss who visits on Thursdays is 489. You're just the kid, so you don't get a number, you don't get a name, you're just, hey you, and hurry up, and bring more tea. You're 11 years old, serving tea to the 14K Triad, and you don't know it yet, but you just became the lowest rung on a ladder that goes up 600 years into history and down into a hole that has no bottom. This is the entry point. This is where it starts. Not with a choice, but with a transaction. 200 Hong Kong dollars. Your mother's tears. Your brother's asthma. The perfect trap, because when survival is the only option, every direction looks like forward. 6 months in, they start using you for errands. Not tea and ashtrays anymore, but deliveries. Envelopes sealed with red wax. Small packages wrapped in brown paper. You're 11 years old, which means the police don't look at you twice, which means you're perfect for moving things that can't be moved by people the police do look at. The envelopes contain money, you figure that out fast because they're heavy and they crinkle and Uncle Chung counts them in front of you without bothering to hide what he's doing. The packages contain heroin, which you figure out slower, after one of them tears in your backpack and white powder spills onto your school books that you don't have anymore because you don't go to school anymore. You scoop the powder back into the package with your hands. Deliver it anyway. Nobody mentions the tear. Nobody asks why there's less powder than there should be. This is your first lesson in how the organization works. Small losses are acceptable. Getting caught is not. As long as you deliver something, you're useful. The moment you get caught, you're a liability, and liabilities don't get second chances, they get disappeared. By 13, you know every street in Kowloon, every alley in Mongkok, every escape route in Sim Sha Sui. You know which police officers take bribes and which ones don't. You know which shopkeepers will let you hide in their back rooms if you're being followed. You know how to spot undercover cops by their shoes, which are always slightly too nice for the neighborhood they're pretending to live in. You've become an expert in being invisible, which is a skill that will serve you for the rest of your life, right up until the moment when being invisible stops being useful and you need to become very, very visible very, very fast. The men start talking to you. Not at you, but to you, which is different. They ask your opinion on things that don't matter, which is how they test if you're smart enough for things that do matter. They tell you stories about the organization, about how the 14K started 600 years ago as a resistance movement against the Qing dynasty, how the numbers mean things, how 14 is the number of members in the original organization, how K is for Kowloon. They tell you about the hierarchy, about the 36 oaths you swear when you're initiated, about the blood ceremony where they cut your finger and mix your blood with wine and you drink it with your brothers while swearing loyalty to the society above family, above country, above self. They tell you this like they're telling you history, but what they're really doing is recruiting, and you're young enough that you don't see the difference. By the time you're 14, you want in. Not because you've made a choice, but because you've been shaped into wanting it, the same way water shapes stone by running over it long enough. The organization isn't forcing you. It's just making every other option impossible. They initiate you at 14, which is young but not unheard of, and the ceremony happens in a warehouse in Kwun Tong at 2 a.m., which is late enough that the police aren't patrolling but early enough that the sun hasn't started thinking about coming up. There are 40 men in the room, all 14K, all with the same tattoos, all watching you like you're either about to join them or about to die, and the distinction isn't clear yet. The incense master conducts the ceremony. He's maybe 60, and he's been 14K since before you were born, and he recites the 36 oaths in a dialect of Cantonese so old you can barely understand it. But you know enough. You swear loyalty to the society above all else. You swear to protect your brothers even if it costs your life. You swear to obey the orders of your superiors without question. You swear to never betray the organization to authorities. You swear to accept punishment, including death, if you violate these oaths. They cut your finger with a knife that's been used for this ceremony for decades, maybe longer, And your blood drips into a bowl of wine that's been mixed with the blood of a rooster they sacrificed at the beginning of the ceremony. You drink the wine. It tastes like copper and betrayal and the future. Every man in the room drinks from the same bowl. You're not individuals anymore. You're cells in an organism that's older than anyone can remember and will outlive everyone in this room. They give you your number. 49. It's the lowest rank, but it's a rank, which means you matter now in a way you never mattered before. You're not the T-boy. You're a soldier. You're 14K. And for the first time since your mother sold you for $200, you feel like you belong somewhere, which is the hook, which is the trap, which is exactly how they designed it. Non-14K, who's been selling on territory that belongs to the organization. He's maybe 25, and he's selling methamphetamine to teenagers outside a school in Sham Shui Pa, and the organization doesn't care about the teenagers or the school, they care about the territory, because territory is money and money is everything. They send you with 2 older members, 49s who've done this before, who know how to hurt someone just enough that they understand the message but not so much that they die, because corpses bring police attention and police attention is expensive. The plan is simple: find him, beat him, leave him conscious enough to report back to whoever he works for that this territory is closed. You find him at 11 p.m., leaning against a wall, smoking a cigarette, waiting for customers who aren't coming because it's a Tuesday and school is tomorrow, and even drug addicts have some sense of schedule. He sees you coming and starts to run, but he's high on his own supply and his legs don't work the way they should, and the 2 older 49s catch him in 10 meters. They hold him. They look at you. This is your test. They hand you a pipe, metal, the kind you use for plumbing. They tell you where to hit him. Ribs, not the head. Head injuries are unpredictable. Ribs break clean, heal eventually, hurt enough to make the point. You swing. The first hit is the hardest, not physically, but mentally, because you're crossing a line that you can't uncross, and you know it, and you do it anyway because the alternative is going back to being nobody. The first time you hurt someone, you're 15. The target is a street dealer, he screams. The sound is worse than the impact. The second hit is easier. The third hit is routine. By the 5th hit, you're not thinking anymore, you're just doing, and that's when you realize the empathy switch has flipped. He's not a person. He's a problem. And you're the solution. They pull you off after 7 hits. The dealer is on the ground, crying, begging, bleeding. You're breathing hard, and your hands are shaking, but not from fear. From adrenaline. From power. From the realization that you just became someone who matters. You go home to the cot in the kitchen and you can't sleep, not because of guilt, but because you keep replaying it, the sound, the impact, the way he folded, the way the older 49s looked at you with something like respect. 2 days later, Uncle Chung tells you you're being promoted. You're moving up. Better work, better money, better everything. The violence bought you a future. And the future tastes like copper. At 17, you're a 426, red pole, which is the enforcer rank, the muscle of the organization. Youngest 426 in the history of the 14K, which is something they remind you of constantly, like it's an honor instead of a warning. You're in charge of collections, which means you visit businesses that owe the organization money and you remind them in physical terms that debts are not suggestions. The money is absurd. You're making 15,000 Hong Kong dollars monthly, which is more than your mother made in a year, which is enough to send money home, which you do because despite everything, she's still your mother and your brother still has asthma. You send 3,000 monthly. She doesn't ask where it comes from. She stopped asking questions the day she sold you. The transaction closed the door on honesty, and doors, once closed, tend to stay that way. You're good at violence. Not good like you enjoy it, though maybe you do, you've stopped examining that particular question. Good like it's a skill you've mastered, like speaking Cantonese or knowing which streets to avoid during police shifts. You know how to break fingers so they heal crooked and serve as permanent reminders. You know how to dislocate shoulders without tearing ligaments. You know exactly how hard to hit someone in the kidney so they piss blood for a week but don't die. This is professional development. This is climbing the ladder. The organization is expanding. Macau, Taiwan, Vancouver, San Francisco, every city with a Chinatown has 14K presence, and the presence is growing because the demand is growing, and the demand is growing because methamphetamine is cheap to make and expensive to buy, and the profit margin is so obscene that even after everyone takes their cut, there's enough left over to make violence economically rational. At 21, you go to Vancouver. The 14K is establishing operations there, and they need someone who's smart and ruthless and young enough to adapt to a new country. You land in Canada with a false passport that says you're a student, which is technically true if violence is a subject and you've graduated with honors. The Chinese community in Vancouver is 400,000 people, and a percentage of them use drugs, and a percentage of the people who sell them drugs pay tribute to the 14K, and you're there to make sure the percentages stay favorable. You set up the infrastructure. Import routes from Hong Kong through shipping containers that arrive at the port of Vancouver full of knockoff designer goods and methamphetamine hidden in false bottoms. Distribution networks through restaurants and karaoke bars and massage parlors, all of them legitimate businesses that happen to do illegitimate business after hours. Money laundering through real estate, which in Vancouver is so expensive and so opaque that it's practically designed for washing drug money. Within a year, you're running 24 labs across British Columbia. Small operations, 10 kilos monthly each, spread out enough that if one gets raided, the others keep operating. Total production, 240 kilos monthly. Street value, 24 million Canadian dollars. Your cut, 10%. You're making 2.4 million annually, which you send back to Hong Kong through a network of money transfer services that technically report large transactions but practically don't, because the people running them are 14K or pay tribute to 14K or are smart enough to know that asking questions is bad for business. At 26, the leadership approaches you. The current dragon head, the 489 who runs the entire organization, is dying. Cancer, which even triads can't intimidate into remission. They need a successor, and traditionally it's the oldest 438, the deputy, but the oldest 438 is 63 and the organization is expanding into digital currency and encrypted communication and markets that require someone who understands technology and adaptation and how to run a transnational criminal empire like a corporation instead of a street gang. They choose you. 26 years old. Youngest dragon head in 600 years of 14K history. The ceremony is in Hong Kong, in a temple that's older than the organization, and every senior member attends, hundreds of men, all watching, all evaluating, all wondering if you're ready or if you're about to crash the entire structure into the ground. You swear new oaths, more binding than the 36 you swore at 14. You accept responsibility for the organization's prosperity. You accept the burden of settling disputes. You accept the authority to order violence, to approve operations, to speak for the society in all matters internal and external. They tattoo a dragon on your back, takes 8 hours, and the pain is irrelevant because pain is temporary and the dragon is forever. You restructure everything. The old guard doesn't like it, but the old guard is dying or in prison or too smart to argue with the new dragon head who just proved he can build an empire in a foreign country in 5 years. You implement cell structures so if one unit gets compromised, the others are insulated. You adopt encrypted communication, smartphones with custom apps that delete messages after reading. You diversify revenue streams, methamphetamine, heroin, human trafficking, counterfeit goods, real estate investment, cryptocurrency. The organization isn't a gang anymore. It's a conglomerate. At 28, you're running operations across Hong Kong, Vancouver, Toronto, Sydney, and San Francisco. Monthly revenue, 120 million Hong Kong dollars, which is 15.5 million US dollars, which is more money than you can conceptualize, so you stop trying and just watch the numbers go up like a video game score that never ends. You're personally clearing 12 million Hong Kong dollars monthly. Your brother, who you saved with 200 Hong Kong dollars 15 years ago, is a pediatric surgeon now. You paid for medical school. You paid for his apartment. You paid for everything, and he thinks you run import-export businesses, which is technically true if the exports are drugs and the imports are money. You can't attend his wedding. Too public, too many photos, too much exposure. You send 500,000 Hong Kong dollars as a gift, enough to buy a house, and you watch the ceremony via a video call from a burner phone in a hotel room in Singapore, and afterward, you turn off the phone and destroy the SIM card and sit in the dark trying to remember what it felt like to be a person instead of a position. His name is Tiger, which isn't his real name, but real names are dangerous and everyone in the organization uses aliases. You recruit him when he's 19, fresh off a manslaughter charge that got dropped because witnesses disappeared, which is how you know he's useful. He's smart, loyal, ambitious in the right way, meaning he wants to rise but not so badly that he'd betray you to do it. Or so you think. You mentor him the way Uncle Chung mentored you, except you're better at it because you're smarter and you understand that loyalty isn't about fear, it's about mutual benefit and respect and making someone believe that their success is tied to yours. You promote him fast. 49 to 426 in 2 years. Red pole at 21, same age you were. You trust him with operations in Toronto, then Sydney, then you bring him back to Hong Kong and make him your 438, your deputy, your second in command. You call him little brother, which in the organization is a term of affection and respect, and he calls you Dai Lo, which means big brother, which means leader, which means the man he's supposed to follow until one of you dies. You eat dinner together weekly. You discuss operations, strategy, expansion plans. He's good, maybe better than you were at his age, and you're proud of him in the way that mentors are proud of students who exceed them, which is to say you're proud until the moment you realize that exceeding you means replacing you. The signs are small at first. He starts making decisions without consulting you. He builds relationships with suppliers you don't know. He promotes his own people into positions of power. When you ask about it, he says he's being proactive, taking initiative, doing exactly what you taught him to do. And he's right, which is why you don't stop him, which is why you don't see it coming until it's too late. It happens on a Tuesday, which is fitting because your mother sold you on a Tuesday, and the poetry of the timing isn't lost on you in the seconds before the gun goes off. You're in a warehouse in Kwun Tong, the same warehouse where they initiated you 20 years ago, meeting with suppliers from Thailand about a new heroin route through Laos. Tiger is there. So are 4 other men you trust, except trust is the wrong word because trust implies a choice and you never chose to trust them, you just didn't choose to doubt them, which turns out to be the same thing with worse consequences. Tiger pulls a gun. Not fast, not dramatic, just pulls it out like he's pulling out a phone, and the casualness is somehow worse than if he'd rushed. The other 4 men pull guns too, and suddenly you're the only person in the room who isn't armed, which is a tactical error you've made for the first time in 20 years, and it's going to be the last error you make because there are no second chances at this altitude. Nothing personal, die low, Tiger says, and his voice is steady, and he's not even pretending to be sorry, which you respect in a distant way that doesn't help you at all. The council voted. They want new leadership. Younger. More aggressive. You've gotten soft. Too careful. Too slow. The organization needs to evolve. You want to argue, but he's right. You have gotten careful. You stopped taking risks after you hit 489 because when you're at the top, every risk is existential. You've been protecting what you built instead of building more, which in an organization that measures success by growth is the same as failure. You taught Tiger to be aggressive, to take risks, to never stop expanding. And now he's applying those lessons to removing you, which is either ironic or inevitable depending on how you measure teacher success. The council, you say, and you're surprised at how calm your voice is, like you're discussing the weather instead of your execution. How many voted for this? All of them, Tiger says. Unanimous. They're waiting outside. They want to do this right. Traditional. Respectful. You built this organization into what it is. You deserve a clean death. He raises the gun. You're 34 years old. You've been 14K for 20 years. You've hurt hundreds of people. You've killed dozens. You've built an empire that spans 5 countries and generates hundreds of millions annually. You've taken a street gang and turned it into a transnational corporation. And your reward is a bullet in a warehouse, delivered by the man you trained to replace you, surrounded by men you promoted, in the organization you bled for. The last thought you have is about your mother. Not anger, just curiosity. You wonder if she thinks about the $200. You wonder if she knows what she bought. You wonder if she regrets the purchase or if she'd do it again, knowing how it ends. You'll never know because the bullet interrupts the thought, and the thought stays unfinished, and you're dead before you hit the floor. Tiger becomes dragon head the same night. The council confirms it. The ceremony is quick, no temple, no 8-hour tattoo, just a vote and a handshake and the understanding that he's in charge now. He's 29. Second youngest 489 in 14K history, after you. He implements changes immediately. More aggressive expansion. More violence. More risk. Everything you stopped doing, he starts doing, and the organization grows, and everyone profits, and your death becomes a footnote in the ledger, a line item in the succession, barely mentioned and quickly forgotten. Your brother finds out from the news. They don't name you specifically, just report that a senior Triad member was found dead in an industrial district, victim of internal power struggle. Your brother calls your phone. It's disconnected. He tries your apartment. Someone else answers. He goes to the police. They tell him to go home. He never learns the details. Maybe that's mercy. The money you sent him stops. His apartment was in your name, so he has to move. His car was a gift from you, so he sells it to pay rent. Medical school was expensive, and he has loans he was counting on you to help with, but you're not helping with anything anymore because you're in an unmarked grave in the new territories, and the location is known to exactly 5 people who will never tell anyone because telling people where bodies are buried is bad for business. Right now, somewhere in Kowloon, there's an 11-year-old boy. His mother works in a garment factory for $800 a month, except now it's 2024, not 1989, so the same poverty costs more and buys less. His younger sibling has a chronic condition that requires expensive medicine. His father disappeared, or died, or is in prison. The details don't matter because the result is the same. Not enough money, too many mouths, desperation that tastes like copper and feels like drowning. A man comes to visit. Clean shirt, pressed slacks, expensive watch that catches the light even in the darkness of whatever replaced the walled city after they tore it down. The man owns a restaurant, or a tea house, or a karaoke bar, and he has an offer. Food. Shelter. Money sent home. The same offer they've been making for 600 years because it works, because desperation is renewable, because poverty is the organization's recruiting department and it never runs out of applicants. The boy's mother takes the money. Maybe it's $500 now, inflation adjusted, maybe it's $1,000, the number doesn't matter because the transaction is the same. She's selling her son because she has to, because the math is simple, because 2 people can survive on $800 monthly if one person is somewhere else. She cries. The boy doesn't understand yet that this is goodbye, that he's crossing a line that only goes one direction, that he's being sold into a system that will shape him and use him and eventually discard him. He'll work in the basement. He'll serve tea. He'll run errands. He'll see the tattoos and hear the numbers and learn the hierarchy. At 14, they'll initiate him. At 15, he'll hurt someone for the first time. At 17, he'll be good at it. At 21, he'll run operations in a foreign country. At 26, if he's smart and ruthless and lucky, he'll become Dragon Head. And at 34, give or take a few years depending on how aggressive he is and how paranoid he gets, someone he trained will put a gun to his head in a warehouse and explain that the council voted, that the organization needs new leadership, that nothing personal but this is how it works, this is how it's always worked. This is the machine that runs on blood and ambition and the infinite renewable resource of desperate children who can be bought for the price of their siblings' medicine. The 14K doesn't need you. It doesn't need Tiger. It doesn't need any specific person. It just needs the conditions that create the desperation. The poverty, the gambling debts, the chronic illnesses, the disappeared fathers, the mothers who cry while counting money. As long as those conditions exist, there will always be 11-year-old boys sleeping under tables in restaurant basements, learning to be invisible, waiting for the moment when they get to be visible in exactly the wrong ways. The system doesn't run on loyalty. It runs on replacement. Every dragon head trains the person who kills them. Every mentor creates the student who exceeds them. Every generation teaches the next one how to climb, and climbing means stepping on the people above you, and the people above you know this because they did the same thing, and the cycle continues because the cycle is the point. 600 years. 600 years of boys sold for money they'll never own, climbing a ladder that only goes one direction, learning to hurt people professionally, building empires that they'll never retire from because retirement means death and death comes from the people you trusted most. 600 years of the same mathematics, the same desperation, the same deal offered in the same dark rooms by the same kind of men wearing different watches. And the machine keeps running.